Charlie's plan to save her reputation goes off the rails while we finally uncover Alastor's backstory alongside his history with Vox, while gaining a bit more insight into Sir Pentious' past in this week's episodes of Hazbin Hotel Season 2, Hazbin Hotel Behind Closed Doors, and It's a Deal. How can Angel just atone for his sins on Earth? What is Rosie's true plan of Alastor? And could Lilith get involved? We got so much to cover, so let's just get right into it. Spoilers ahead. Also, if you end up enjoying the video, please remember to like and subscribe to the Roundtable with notifications on so you never miss a Hazbin Hotel video. Episode 3, Hazbin Hotel Behind Closed Doors, picks up directly from the end of the last episode. Charlie's hit with a double whammy of a 666 news hit piece and a sudden yet brief encounter with Emily, who drops some huge bombshells that redemption works as Pentious made it into heaven, and also heaven's going to lockdown because they have no idea what they're going to do about sinners and are afraid of further retaliation for 7 years of genocide. But hey, redemption works! However, since Pentious isn't allowed to leave heaven, and Charlie is currently cut off from contact, she has no tangible evidence that Penn actually ascended. So although she knows she's working towards something real, she has to fight twice as hard to prove that it's not all smoke and mirrors. And the timing could not be worse, given Vox's smear campaign against her, as the V's are hell-bent on taking the Morningstar family's reputation alongside the hotel. So Charlie decides to invite Vox over for an interview to defuse the slander and announce that redemption is real. When Charlie pulls up Vox's number, we can spot creator Vivian Medrano, aka Vivzy Pop, as another contact in her phone.
People assume that that's like me, like, oh, haha, get this, like a little ego boost. The crew likes to make fun of me.
Cherry Bomb's rattled by the revelation that Pentious ascended because 1, it shows his actions during the extermination were genuine and that he was truly a pure heart in this moment, and 2, it means he's actually alive. In the afterlife, still a ghost sort of way. And now Cherry can't just bury and forget any mutual feelings the two shared. She thought she could just move on from Pentious and never have to unpack what their dynamic meant to her, if their relationship had a chance at evolving beyond a typical Saturday morning cartoon rivalry. With this new development, she wants to learn more about Pentious and the kind of person he truly was behind closed doors, since he apparently has what it takes for the pearly gates. So Husk pushes her in Baxter's direction. As the two used to work together, Baxter confirms he works for Voxtech, which I've been saying as again, his color palette makes it really obvious. And we learn that he loves his lab more than anything.
Give me the full story or the lab gets it. Okay, fine.
This man holds his research so near and dear to his heart, which makes his employment at Voxtech all the more embarrassing because Vox doesn't value other people's hard work at all, despite relying so heavily on them. We learn that Baxter and Pentious worked as a duo who excelled at bioengineering and traditional engineering respectively. One dabbled in experimenting with organic life, while the other dabbled in old-fashioned technology. This flashback reveals that Baxter actually created Pentious' egg boys, as we see them incubating as yolks on his side of the lab. So they were children of divorce after all. The two were a duo who wanted to achieve joint overlord status, but drifted apart as Pentious' technology couldn't keep up with the rest of hell, getting dog-walked during an exhibition by Zestial. I'm actually really curious about this Coliseum. It seems like they're basically having Pokemon battles in this thing, and I'd love to see more of it, especially since it seems to be used by overlords to scout talent. While Pentious didn't make the cut, Baxter's bio-experiments garnered the attention of Vox, who used to have a CRTV as his head before upgrading to a flat screen, which we get a better look of in episode 4. Vox has been upgrading his head and probably overall body to keep up with the modern times over on Earth, highlighting his desire to perpetually stay in the limelight and never be perceived as irrelevant or outdated. Unfortunately, Baxter lost sight of his original goal by working with someone like Vox, as he would never let Baxter become an overlord, instead keeping him around on payroll as just another cog in the Voxtech machine, a pawn and nothing more. Vox's influence on Baxter seemed to have drawn out a darker, ruler side that cemented his status as a mad scientist. He started to devalue his older, less menacing creations, as illustrated through him using the Egg Boys as test subjects to horrifying results. I assume Vox wants pure killing machines, and the Egg Boys are way too silly and too innocent to do any real damage, and thus became disposable. Pentious took full custody of the eggs and called off his partnership, pursuing a full-time turf war of Cherry Bomb, who Baxter claims Pentious was obsessed with, implying that they only kept up the rivalry as a way of flirting, because as we saw when he was still a human on Earth, Penn has always struggled with communication and forming connections with those around him. He seems to have needed something hyper-specific in common, like a love for science or a lust for power, in order to bond with people, and the latter was how he bonded with Cherry, sort of. This is the basis of baiting the piss out of you. A banger that explores the two's turf war and how they mutually enjoyed their never-ending battle. All this information teaches Cherry that Pentious has always had a soft side and was probably never cut out for hell in the first place. He never wanted to be evil. He just wanted to be respected and ensure a safety net for himself. Charlie inviting Vox Tech for a tell-all inadvertently leads to Vox and Velvet's arrival at the hotel. And this is where Charlie starts to lose me, because she knows the V's are bad news. She caught a glimpse of Valentino's cruelty when trying to help Angel Dust, and is well aware that Vox tried to spy on the hotel through Pentious in Season 1. But instead of showing Vox and Velvet the door once she sees they're no ordinary reporters, but the two dangerous overlords who are trying to take her down, she instead decides to roll around the mud and play their games despite Angel Dust's warning. As soon as Vox shows up, he's begging for Alastor's attention, but the radio demon is quick to get out of dodge. This shows us where Vox's head is really at throughout this season. He doesn't care about sinners or creating a new world order. He's just gunning to the top of the throne because he wants to finally prove to Alastor that he's better than him, that he doesn't need to rely on anyone to get the job done. It all comes back to the beef. One of Velvet's critiques for the Hazbin Hotel is that there's too much red, which is a nod towards a common complaint people had online about the show's color palette in Season 1. A criticism that they did take to heart, as Season 2's palettes are a lot more varied. Vox and Velvet grilled Charlie about sinners and the extermination. The most interesting question to me is the one that allowed Vox to call out how only the hotel was protected by Alastor's barrier during the extermination, allowing Charlie to only shield her quote-unquote favorite characters. Now we know this only happened because Adam told Charlie that the hotel would be his first stop, so they were trying to nip the extermination in the bud before it could spread to the rest of the Pride Ring. And in all actuality, no one was really protected during the battle, as they were all fighting for their lives the whole time. No one had a moment to breathe. Of course, Vox knows Charlie wasn't being selfish, but this question highlights how he excels at manipulation and depicting people in the worst possible light when the cameras are rolling. He's taking advantage of what he was able to witness and choosing what to relay to the rest of the public in order to push his agenda, knowing that Charlie is unaware that he surveyed the battle, so she would naturally be thrown off by this question and appear to be guilty. Vox taunts Husk and calls him a pet, alluding to him knowing that Husk has a deal with Alastor, which makes you wonder how long ago that deal was formed. Was Vox still hanging around Alastor when that deal was made, or did Vox just figure this out through his extensive surveillance and stalking of the radio demon? Angel Dust is put in an extremely unfortunate situation as Charlie and Husk push him into being a redemption volunteer for Charlie. What's especially frustrating about this, aside from the V's connection to Valentino, is that it takes Charlie a little too long to piece together that you have to be redeemed of your original sin in order to ascend, initially believing that putting Angel through Pentious' trials would do the trick instead of considering the possibility that every sinner has their own unique path to redemption. Also, as far as we know, atonement seems to require a sinner to sacrifice their life in hell, as Pentious didn't become an angel until after he got vaporized by Adam in his attempt to protect Cherry Bomb. Pentious let women die because he was too scared to turn Jack the Ripper into the authorities, but he redeemed himself after stepping in to save a woman that he loved. If he survived that, I don't think he would have magically been beamed up into heaven and morph into an angel. He had to perish in hell so that he could reincarnate in heaven. All of that is to say, the only way for Charlie to prove that redemption works is to have one of her friends killed, which nearly happened with the train exercise. This is a great Vox face though. That's what made this plan doomed from the start, as Charlie ended up in this dilemma because she currently lacks evidence that Pentious got redeemed. Even if she miraculously caused one of her guests to ascend on live television, Vox would still press her to prove that it actually happened, and she would have ended up back at square one. I'm so glad we had this moment where Husk calls out Angel Dust for attempting to get himself killed. Angel's actions in this moment tells me that although he wants to rehabilitate himself and make it to the pearly gates, he evidently still craves the sweet release of permadeath, a final resting place that goes beyond hell, implying that a bigger part of himself feels unworthy of redemption, and the impending reveal explains why. Valentino already gossiped to Vox about why Angel Dust is in hell. Angel killed his father, though he's apprehensive to the label of murderer, which implies it's a bit more complicated than just putting his pops out of his misery for the hell of it. Did Angel do this in self-defense? Vox does accuse Angel's dad of hitting him, so this would track. Maybe Angel did it to protect his sister Molly, the sibling who actually made it to heaven while Angel and Arachnus are stuck in hell. If he did do it to defend someone, does this mean that taking a life will doom you to eternal damnation, regardless of your intention or circumstance? Also, this is just me spitballing, but is it possible that Angel poisoned his father, adding new layers to the song Poison? Hell, maybe he somehow poisoned him by mistake, which would also explain why Angel doesn't rock with being called a murderer. I definitely don't think Angel killed his dad for sick kicks. I'd bet on him living in an abusive household, and he was pushed into doing what he felt like he had to do. But also, how do you get redeemed of murder if it was in self-defense or to protect someone else? I've speculated before that poison could be alluding to Angel's own death in the future, so despite how twisted it may sound, maybe atonement calls for protecting someone else by surrendering his own life instead of taking someone else's. Though that might be too reminiscent of Pentious. Vox asks Charlie if she thinks he could be redeemed, and Charlie asserts that anyone can, which is still something I believe will be explored and ultimately rejected in later seasons, now that real-life killers like Jack the Ripper are in the lore. The aftermath of this interview sees Angel on tense terms with Charlie, Vox getting away with another hit piece, and the hotel losing a majority of its guests. But the show reminds us that even when it feels like everything is going wrong, there's always something worth celebrating, as Cherry decides to stay at the hotel full time. I believe she did this for two reasons. One, to be there for Angel, of course. She knows how all this is affecting him. But two, she was moved by hearing Pentious' story, and I believe she wants to work towards redemption herself because she wants to see him again and ultimately be with him. Ending this third episode on an overall sweet note. Episode 4, It's a Deal, continues Charlie's battle against media manipulation as she wants to confront Katie Killjoy on live television to clear up misinformation, despite Vaggy's warnings. Charlie can't help but to keep playing right into Vox's trap, and I won't lie, I feel like she should be smarter than this, but I get it. She's running on empty, trying to avoid confronting her trauma, and desperate for a win. She's also convinced that she needs to handle this as a sole leader like her mother, when in reality, she needs to heed the warnings of her loved ones and work with them as a team to overcome all of Vox's BS. My friends are my power type beat, you know? Shifting focus to Alastor in this episode, we get explicit confirmation that the state of his broken staff has affected his powers, leaving him unable to heal himself from the wounds sustained by Adam's axe guitar. He knows his spot on the totem pole has shifted, and it's deterred him from sticking to his duties as the host of the hotel, throwing in the towel completely after Lucifer rubs the offense of the extermination in his face.
And I hear you got your ass kicked and ran away when Charlie needed you most.
That's it. Fuck this. I quit.
I love how Alastor and Lucifer have duck season and deer season written on their respective mugs, referring to the classic rabbit season, duck season bit from Looney Tunes. Given what we learn about Alastor's backstory in this episode, I kind of wondered if Lucifer was already aware of how Alastor died, given that he calls him Bambi, and Bambi's mom was famously shot and killed by an unseen hunter like Alastor. If Lucifer does already know the lore, then maybe as the king of hell, he has the innate knowledge of how every sinner who ends up in the Pride Ring died. Or maybe he's just able to make the inference based off Alastor's deer-like appearance. I don't know. This line felt a little too specific to me, so I'm gonna roll with the idea that this is just a feat of Lucifer's. It gives him some extra sauce in these trying times. As Charlie tries to clear her name on television with nifty-ass testimony, believing that people hearing from the Atom Slayer herself will make them view the hotel a bit more favorably, Alastor swings by Rosie's, overlord and leader of Cannibal Town, who has an interest in Charlie and a history with Alastor. Two things that we learn are actually intertwined, as it's revealed that Rosie is indeed Alastor's master, the owner of his soul, and she's not letting him quit his job at the hotel that easily. The conversation between these two throws a lot at us. Alastor made a deal with Rosie to become the strongest sinner in hell at the expense of being her pet, someone who's forever indebted to her until he fulfills a particular task, one that seems to be related to the hotel and the Morningstar family. While Rosie is why Alastor was assigned to keep an eye on Charlie, I'm not fully convinced that this gig was Rosie's idea. Look, Alastor returned to the Pride Ring and introduced himself to Charlie as soon as she hit up Lilith in the pilot. I totally think Lilith put in a favor of her own by asking Rosie to send Alastor to the hotel for her own ulterior motives. For some reason, Alastor in particular is a very valuable asset to Lilith. Alastor even says, "We aren't getting any closer to," before getting cut off by Rosie. And while his next words might have very well been redemption, as he was complaining about the hotel, by this point he knows that Pentious made it to heaven, so I think it's more likely that he was referring to Lilith and Rosie's true plan, the reason why he's really there. So he was actually going to say something along the lines of, "We aren't getting any closer to whatever we really want out of the hotel." If I had to take a shot in the dark, Alastor's mission is to draw out Charlie's latent potential, figuratively and literally, to not only transform her into the competent leader she already strives to be, but to harness the insane power that lies within her, the power that we've only gotten glimpses of, namely during the extermination. And once Charlie's transformation is complete, she can be guided by Alastor into carrying out Lilith and Rosie's bidding. A puppet controlled by a puppet who's controlled by another puppet. Puppetception. Maybe Rosie wants to usurp the Morning Stars in general, given how when she made her deal with Alastor, Charlie would have been significantly younger and obviously hadn't come up with the hotel. So its emergence ended up being more of a convenience for Rosie and her master plan. Rosie power skills Alastor a bit, establishing that even the most powerful sinner couldn't go toe-to-toe with an archangel, which really puts into context how out of his depth Alastor is while on his own journey of demonic domination. Not being able to touch Adam means, in theory, he'll never be able to touch the likes of Lucifer, and I don't think Alastor is going to settle for that at all. He needs to be able to best everyone in order to strike fear into the tainted souls of sinners everywhere. A goal he had all the way back when he was alive, as we get a flashback of Alastor's life on Earth in the 1930s. He was a hustler who ascended to the status of radio star and playboy with a secret dark side. He loved murdering people, hoarding their corpses and especially their bones, to aid in his endeavors with black magic, as he performed countless rituals in an attempt to connect with the spirits of hell through radio, eventually making contact with Rosie. Alastor's attempts at reaching the afterlife through these means is a nod to how ghost hunters use radio frequencies to try and communicate with the dead, utilizing devices called spirit boxes, as it's believed ghosts can make contact with the living through white noise. I guess Al was just ahead of all the reality shows. Alastor really is in this for the love of the game and nothing more, as he made a bargain to secure himself a spot amongst the most powerful sinners in hell, simply so he could continue his mass murdering antics. Rosie remarks that she's never seen a soul like Alastor's, which could very well just be referring to how jovially bloodlusted he is, but I believe this has deeper implications relating to Alastor's origins. It may be possible that he's not fully human. What if he already had demon in his blood, and that factors into his familiarity with the occult? Could you imagine if he turned out to be the Antichrist? The bastard child of Lucifer or Satan? You know, the other big guy from Hell the Boss. The possibilities are endless. We definitely have plenty more to learn about Alastor going beyond this episode. During You Are My Pet, a song where Alastor gets humiliated and put in his place by Rosie, we receive confirmation that his disappearance was actually her doing. Remember, Alastor disappeared in the same 7 to 8 year time frame where Lilith disappeared and the extermination started up. There's a connection to all of this. Perhaps Rosie forced Alastor to disappear because she was worried about how much influence he was amassing alongside his deals. Like, not only was he the most powerful sinner in terms of raw strength, but also in captivating an audience and spreading a message. He wasn't just feared, his word as a radio demon was becoming law, and neither Rosie or Lilith liked it. Alastor even says his name inspires much less fear nowadays, showing how his absence loosened his grip on the culture. Maybe they needed to keep him quiet so that he wouldn't inspire sinners to fight back against the exterminations. Or maybe he posed a threat to Charlie's inevitable rise in power. Now Rosie does say, or I guess sing, that Alastor's moves are hers and hers alone, which might eliminate the possibility of Lilith having any influence in all this. But in the context of the song and this interaction, I think it more so leans into the idea that Alastor lacks true autonomy. Anything he does is under Rosie's orders, even if Rosie was ordered by someone else. Alastor doesn't get what he wanted out of this visit, as Rosie refuses to throw him a bone and tells him to manage without his staff. I think she wants him to be knocked down a peg for a little bit so that he'll be more obedient in the future. Or maybe she wanted him to remain powerless because she secretly supports Vox's endeavors and finds him to be a more promising prospect when it comes to crippling Heaven's power. Or maybe she isn't able to fix it for one reason or another, but she doesn't want him to know that. So Alastor turns to his usual pastime for his next move, rage-baiting Vox. Now when Alastor has his big brain blast moment, a sign behind him reads, "In loving memory of Susan. I wish she'd die again," referring to Susan from last last season who was giving Charlie shit during her visit to Cannibal Town. Hell doesn't seem to commemorate the human deaths of sinners, so I think this implies that Susan got killed off screen, maybe in the extermination? Or maybe she finally got eaten by another cannibal. Either way, I think she dead. As Alastor remarks that he can fix his own problems, he stands proudly in front of statues of the Morningstar family, implying that usurping the Morningstars is, at the very least, his end goal to ensure he becomes the most powerful in hell. After Charlie gets baited into a "I think Kuzco sucks" moment, there are a lot of gems flying in the live chat, but my favorites might be, "She needs to exterminate her hairdresser." A couple of comments accusing Charlie of being unable to properly empathize with sinners who survive the exterminations because of her status. I really hope that's explored more in the show. And we also have some deranged commenter talking about their V fanfiction. That definitely called someone in the audience out, and whoever it was, therapy never hurt anyone, you know? Alastor draws out Vox and instigates a fight that quickly falls out of Alastor's favor once the other Vs join in. This allows us to get an up-close and personal look at how the three of them fight. Vox uses electricity, while also maneuvering his wires for long-range combat. And he loves spamming his teleportation, which he not only uses to get around, but also for offensive attacks. Valentino dual-wields pistols, utilizing his red smoke to fog up the area, alongside other smoke-based constructs. And he also seems to be pretty fast, and prefers running on his feet rather than using his wings. Velvet is a spellcaster, forming different energy-based weapons from arrows to knives, and she can make these projectiles detonate at any moment. They're all pretty elite, and it kinda makes me want a Hazbin Hotel fighting game. Cartoons have been getting in on those lately. Alastor arranges a new deal, this time with Vox, surrendering himself to the Vs and boosting Vox's image on 2 conditions. 1, spare Nifty and Husk, and 2, Vox is not allowed to lay his hands on Charlie. No ifs, ands, or buts, regardless of the context. No touchy. He's not saying don't hit Charlie, he literally means do not touch her. Obviously, this is a no-brainer for Vox, as he's eager to have some sort of win over Alastor, even if it's literally handed to him. He's so blinded by his lust for revenge that he can't see that he's walking into a blatant trap. This paves the way for us to get a glimpse into their history, revealing that Vox and Alastor used to be chummy, but not necessarily friends. Alastor respected Vox as an overlord, while Vox deeply admired Alastor and believed that the two could be unstoppable if they joined forces. And Alastor laughed right in his face. Dude, you're kind of a dick. Alastor's reaction to this offer really is the highlight of this flashback, as it conveys how he'll more than likely become one of the final antagonists of the series, as his worldview directly clashes with the themes of the show. Alastor doesn't subscribe to the idea of there being friends in hell, yet Charlie relies on her friends for strength. She views the hotel as a little family, while Alastor, going off what he says here, views them as nothing more than a means to an end. Or at least, that's the mentality he used to have and wants to hold on to, as he's clearly developed a soft spot for the hotel's staff and guests, as he didn't need Nifty or Husk spared, though you could argue that both still have value to him, as Husk is his pawn, and Nifty killed Adam, so she's still an MVP of hell. Alastor believes friendships and partnerships are a sign of weakness, that if you can't climb to the top on your own, then you're worthless, which is ironic, given that his power came from someone else. But I guess he's playing the long game and plans to screw over Rosie anyway. Though maybe Alastor can cope and rationalize that his deals lay out clear terms and conditions and are strictly business, while Vox is asking for something that requires emotional investment and long-term dependence, which Alastor tries to avoid at all costs. Still, everything he says that gets under Vox's skin can easily be applied to him. These two really are two sides of the same coin, and I think that's why Alastor despises him so much. He sees too much of himself in Vox, the parts of him that he desperately tries to kill, but can't run away from entirely. This rejection crushed Vox, and he's been determined to bring down Alastor ever since. Also, Vox's human name is Vincent. Go figure. Vox finally has the tables turned, but again, he's walked into an obvious trap. So although he thinks he's on top of the world now, having Alastor around 24/7 might end up turning everything upside down, without the radio demon even needing to get out of his chair. The games have really begun. And with that said, that's all I have for these 2 episodes. And as always, I want to know what you guys think. What are your theories of Angel Dust and his father, Rosie's plans, and if Lilith has anything to do with Alastor disappearing? Let's get a conversation going in the comments down below, and keep it rolling over on Twitter and Instagram at AllStrikeVox and at Roundtable Vids. If you enjoyed this video, please throw it a like and subscribe to the Roundtable notifications on so you never miss a video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. Peace!